Mr. Chair, and I'll be asking this question in French, if I may. Mr. Page, do we really need pesticides and fertilizer to grow homegrown indoor plants? Could you hear the interpretation? Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
The use of those materials for cultivation indoors. Yes, all plants need fertilizers. That can be simple, garden, store, soil with the fertilizer that's already there. It could be an organic fertilizer from your compost. It could be chemical fertilizer in some situations. In terms of pesticide use, there's no requirement to use pesticides for cannabis. In fact, the current medical cannabis regulations and the licensed producers who grow under those regulations are prohibited from using the majority of chemical pesticides. There's a 20 or so benign pesticides that they can use. So you absolutely don't need pesticides to successfully grow cannabis.
Thank you. I have a further question.
Senator, or do you want to ask another question?
If anyone wants to add anything, please go ahead.
I'd like to add to that, actually,
okay,
because I think, again, this relates to the mythology of the benign producer versus the person who has other intent. Perhaps we're not creating a black market, but we're going to create a very large gray market for cannabis, because you would be allowed to grow and even though maybe the average would be small plants, you can grow very large plants and you can do it as quickly as possible. I mean, if you look at the experience of Canadian farmers in just about every crop in Canada, the fact is the science allows you to grow these record crops, and it's thanks to fertilizers and other science that are enabling people to grow very rapidly. And as much as what we've argued for is an amendment that would put regulations in place before we allow home growing. So if you had proper regulations, then maybe you could limit to some of these smaller plants less frequently, and you could do that in consultation with law enforcement and others. But what we're seeing is there's a whole bunch of, and we have a list, we'd be happy to table it, that has about 19 organizations. And I'm sure this is not an exhaustive list of organizations that are scared of the repercussions of home growing because of the people who will grow it, who will allow their product to enter the gray market. And since anybody who's over the age of 25 will be able to grow it legally, then this leads to people who are underage having access to the product.
Okay. Merci, mais je pourrais vous garder en forme, Monsieur Bourque.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bourque. Now, as far as sharing of ventilation systems is concerned in apartment blocks or in a duplex, it was my understanding before the legalization that was referred to that were one to sell, cultivate or grow marijuana in one home, it would be hard to sell the home because the value of the home would drop if a buyer was actually found. So in addition to that, there's the ventilation issue. So you've proposed an amendment to the legislation which would allow homegrown marijuana and home cultivation. What does it look like for the future for owners? Response: it's already a problem for owners, and it's going to be a problem for the tenants as well, because, well, the tenants are entitled to grow marijuana and to smoke marijuana, and it's going to be even harder to stop something that is going to be legal going forward. And the legislation will enable tenants and renters and to smoke, and the air quality will certainly not be improved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.